Hello, everybody. Welcome back to my persuasive speech. Today, we'll be talking about the voter ID laws, okay? So, imagine waking up on election day ready to vote. You have followed the news, you have opinions about what is happening in your community, and you know your vote matters. But when you get to the polling place, you're told you cannot vote because you do not have the exact form of identification required. Maybe your license is expired. Maybe your wallet was stolen. Maybe you're a college student using an ID that the state does not accept. Maybe you are elderly and no longer drive. So you do not have a current driver's license. Or maybe you simply cannot afford to take time off work, find transportation, and go through the process of getting a new ID. This is why I believe stricter voter ID laws should not be supported unless they include fair, easy, and free ways for every eligible voter to get the identification they need. Election security is important, but voting is also a constitutional right. We should not create laws that sound simple on paper but become real barriers for people in everyday life. Supporters of the voter ID laws usually argue that these laws protect elections from fraud. At first, that sounds reasonable, right? But most of us show ID for things like driving, buying alcohol, getting on a plane, or picking up certain prescriptions. So people may ask, why shouldn't we show ID to vote? I understand that argument. Elections should be secure. People should feel confident that their votes count in the system and is fair. But the issue is not whether election security matters. The issue is whether strict voter ID laws actually solve a major problem, or whether they create a bigger problem by stopping eligible citizens from voting. According to the National Conference of State Legislators, many states already have some type of voter ID laws. Some states are stricter than others, meaning a voter may be required to show a specific type of photo ID before casting a regular ballot. Other states have more flexible rules, such as allowing voters to verify their identity in other ways. This shows the voter ID laws are not all the same. Some are reasonable, while others can be too strict and unfair. The biggest concern is that stricter voter ID laws do not affect everyone equally. People who already have a driver's license, a car, stable housing, flexible work, hours, the hours may not see the problem here, okay? For them, showing ID is easy, but not everyone is in that situation. Strict ID requirements can especially affect elderly voters, low-income voters, students, people with disabilities, and people who do not have reliable transportation. The ACLU has argued that voter ID laws can make voting harder for these groups. For example, if someone does not drive anymore, they may not have a current driver's license. If someone works hourly, they may not be able to miss work to go get document. If someone was born at home or had records loss, getting a birth certificate can be complicated. These may sound like small problems, but together they can stop real citizens from voting. And that is where the law becomes unfair. A right should not depend on how much money you have, whether you drive or whether you take a day off work. Voting is not a privilege for people with perfect paperwork. Voting is a right for eligible citizens. Another problem is that strict voter ID laws often focus on in-person vote fraud, especially someone pretending to be another voter. But that type of fraud is considered rare. So if the problem is rare, we have to ask the solution if the solution is worth it. Is it fair to risk blocking thousands of eligible voters in order to prevent a type of fraud that does not happen often? Some people may say, well, people should just get an ID. But that answer ignores real life barriers. Getting an ID is not always free in practice. Even if the ID itself is is free, people may still need to pay for transportation, birth certificates, name change documents, or take time away from work or caregiving. For someone already struggling financially, those extra steps can be enough to keep them from voting. This does not mean we should ignore election security. We absolutely should have safe and trustworthy elections, but we can protect elections without creating unnecessary barriers. States can use significant verification, voter registration systems, provisional ballots, address confirmation, and other methods to confirm identity. If a state chooses to require ID, then the state should be also make sure they are eligible voter and can easily get one. That means IDs should be completely free. Mobile ID services should be available for elderly voters, disabled voters, and people without transportation. Student IDs, tribal IDs, veteran IDs, and other government-issued documents should be accepted. There should also be a clear backup option for voters who forget or lose their ID, so they can still cast a ballot and verify their identity later. The goal should not be to make voting careless. The goal should be to make voting secure and accessible at the same time. We do not have to choose between election integrity and voting rights. A fair democracy should protect both. In conclusion, the strict voter ID laws may sound reasonable at first, but when we look closer, they can create serious barriers for eligible voters. They can especially affect people who are elderly, low income, disabled, students, or people without easy access to documents and transportation. While election security is important, it should never come at the cost of silencing eligible citizens. So instead of supporting strict voter ID laws, we should support fair election laws that protect the vote without blocking the voter. Democracy works the best when every eligible citizen has a real chance to participate, and a secure election matters. But so does any accessible one. Because at the end of the day, voting should not be harder for people whose voices already struggle to be heard. My name was Jasmine Williams. I really hope I persuaded you on the voter ID laws today. Thank you so much, everybody, and you have a great day.